sometimes I get various comments of appreciation, which I'm thankful for, that point out specifically that I'm not pushing products. And I don't think of it like that a lot of times because I'm not here to push products, obviously. I'm not a salesman. But at the same time, when I stopped and thought about it over the last few weeks, and it really kind of culminated to the point today when I got a very specific message that was very detailed in his message about how much he noticed and appreciated that I'm not, just pushing products and being like an infomercial. And I've been aware of a lot of that type of thing going on in the YouTube community, mainly because there's a lot of people who actually make a living off of their YouTube channel. So, I mean, I'm not against that at all, in terms of making money. But especially if you make content, there's nothing wrong with making money off of it. But I do agree with a lot of my comments that I get, the viewers, subscribers here, that say this over and over. And so I'm at the point now that I just want to make a comment and make a public statement that a lot of the YouTubers are good people, In fact, I think almost all of them are that do this, especially the so-called gear reviewers. Some of them are more survival gear reviewers. Some of them are into prepping. Some are more into survival gear. Some are more into general outdoors. And so I don't think that they sometimes specifically mean to come off as if they're a product reviewer and or an advocate or salesman for that company that sent them the item for free, or at least for a free review. So they'll have content. So it's kind of like free content for them. And at the minimum, they can make some money off of the AdSense for those who watch the videos and watch some of the advertisements. And if they click on the link to buy the product, they get typically a small commission. And it just varies depending on what company and what platform. So, none of that's wrong. I think that capitalism is nothing wrong with that. I don't like crony capitalism. That's very different, and we're not getting into that in this video. But I don't think that a lot of the YouTube, the bigger YouTube channels, let's say it that way, that do a lot of gear reviews that are very, very gear intensive, that I'd say 90+% of their content is just reviewing the gear. Now, sometimes they show you how to use it, and they typically do. They go over a lot of specs, and they give a lot of useful information. And so sometimes they do it in a very entertaining fashion. So there's a lot of other value that they pack into being a gear reviewer. So a lot of people do a very good job at trying to balance that. But still, nonetheless, their content is very heavy with just doing reviews in a very somewhat stagnant way, even though I said sometimes people have different ways to jazz things up. So I guess my thing is that I can only take so much of that personally. And so I just kind of chime out. And it is just me. And not that I don't watch gear reviews or channels that specifically home in on just doing the majority of their content, just reviews, and or trying to push products or sell products. I do watch some of those just out of curiosity and maybe for a little bit of entertainment, just to see what's going on. And maybe I like the personality of the person. But I will tell you, this is just me, and this is just my thing I do. Almost all those individuals that have so-called more dedicated gear review channels or they make a living off of YouTube, which I'm not against, I pretty much over time have unsubscribed. And once again, it's not because I'm against what they're doing. I get really burnt out, and I don't really have any more of a desire to be a part of that type of commerce. It kind of takes some of the life away from the hobby and the lifestyle that we live as preppers in particular, especially if you're with this channel. But if you're in the outdoors, if you're into bushcraft, if you're into more of a militant type of survivalism, that's okay. That's up to you. But a lot of these channels really miss that. They really just miss it. They're more into individual products that they're pushing at the moment, even though they know in a few more weeks there's going to be a bigger, better flashlight that's coming out that will replace that. And it's a losing game. You'll never get caught up. even if you were to try to buy some of this stuff, and a lot of this stuff is very expensive typically, because typically they do that on purpose so they can have a larger commission per sale. So, they're smart. But how many times can you buy some of this stuff and feel like that it's a good value, for one, and number two, it only lasts a few weeks and you typically have something that replaces it that has better steel, if it's like a cutting tool or a flashlight that all of a sudden is obsolete after just a few weeks. And so when you also look at a lot of these products, they're just peripheral products. They're typically not the core items. Very, very often you'll see things that are just completely add-ons to a system that are not necessary. Now you may say, well, the flashlights appear to be a pretty necessary thing, obviously, but you don't need a 9,000 plus lumen flashlight. They have Gear Reviewer just this last night did one that was 9,600 lumens, the size of just a little larger than a Coke can. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not into these kind of fads. And you may say, well, that's not a fad, that's a useful tool. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're not useful and they can't be used, but there's a fad that's going on right now. Unbelievable types of lumen output. We don't need 10,000 lumens for a flashlight. Now, maybe for search and rescue, maybe for military, maybe for other applications. Maybe if you're on a large farm or a ranch and you need to see and illuminate a very large area for whatever reason. Maybe you're moving cattle. But that's such a specialized niche market. It's such a small percentage of the population that wants to put down $200, $300, even $350 for a flashlight. It's probably not even 1% of the population. It's a niche market. I mean, it's very niche. And while I kind of marvel at the technology and go, wow, that's pretty freaking amazing, I just have no interest in buying one. I would probably never buy one unless the price came way down and I actually found a use for it. I'm not going to just buy things with my limited cash flow, just as most of us have very limited cash flow, on things that are just excessive to the max. Just like it's so cool to watch these upper lines of Maxpedition and VanQuest backpacks, and I have a few, but let's just be honest. Do you really need it? Do you really need a $200 or $300 backpack? I mean, really? Really? And of course, some of them are cheaper than that, 150 to 200 range, but you don't really need that. In fact, I have packs that are well under, the $50, $60 range that work just almost as good. Now, the materials are just a little bit substandard comparatively, and the stitching and things are just a little bit less here and there, if not sometimes totally different types of threads and zippers. But I have some that I've used for years and years and years, and there's no problems. So I guess it just depends on how and what you pick that will determine your results. And you have to be somewhat critical and mindful of how you spend your money. But yeah, it's a lot easier just to spend a boatload of money on gear and have some of the best stuff at the moment. But it's either excessive typically, or you really don't even have a need for it, nor can you really even justify the cost. You're just doing it. You're just kind of giving in to the whole ploy. And while I'm not saying you should not buy Maxpedition and VanQuest or upper line knives, or even custom knives for that matter, that's for you to choose. But when we're talking about getting prepared, most people on my channel, I mean, clearly at least 9 out of 10 people, if not more, seriously, I'd say very clearly from the messages I get, most of them are private messages, so you don't see a lot of these in the comment section. People are not prepared. People are panicked, especially if Hillary gets in, which it looks like she is. And I'm very hopeful, though, that things will turn around. I'm let's vote for Trump, but holy hell. The media couldn't be more on Hillary's side, but we're not talking about that today. This video is talking about most people are not prepared. They don't even have their core basics, okay? They're lucky if they can last a few weeks to a few months if they had a shelter in place in their home. And that's an ideal location. God forbid if you had to shelter and do car camping for a month, or God forbid you had to go in the woods in a very probably unrealistic situation most of the time. But in that rare case you had to live in the woods out of a survival pack, how long could you go? Most people don't even have the equipment to do it, much less try to egress or bug out to an actual another location. even for a few days. People don't even have their bug out bag set up. They just don't have core things. People are still struggling to even figure out how to get their EDC together, and they don't even have basic everyday carry, much less a refined system that they know for sure works for them. So I'd say for the most of us, like almost all of us, in fact, maybe all of us, let's not worry about 9 to 10,000 lumen flashlights. We need to focus on what really matters. And I think some of these gear reviewers are missing the mark if they're trying to connect with us, the people. And so while it's entertaining, and that's about as far as I can go personally with their stuff, it doesn't connect with me almost at all, besides the wow factor, and then it ends for me. And so I don't know about you, but maybe we should send a little bit more of a stronger message to these so-called big YouTube channels, that the big gear reviewers, that we appreciate their effort and we want them to excel and to make a good living. But at the same time, we want things that are actually a little bit more practical and realistic, instead of these very high-end items typically. Now, every once in a while, they'll throw in a little keychain piece of gear or gadget, and they probably think, oh, I'm mixing it up. But seriously, there are so many things that they're missing, and we should maybe remind them of what we, the people, have, our needs, and what makes a difference to us. What really is a good affordable backpack. And you'll see sometimes some channels do a really good job with this, especially gear reviewers. They'll have maybe like one video, they'll do a real high-end backpack, and then they'll pull way back. And then the next video is the budget backpack. Now, I like those kind of setups. That's pretty cool. If you're a gear reviewer, that's a pretty good little system there. And then sometimes they'll even do a mid-priced if they have enough options. And they'll kind of bounce it around, and then they'll do like video of them carrying it for a day or even a week. What kind of things can fit in the pack, and besides just talking about the specs. And so there are people who do a very good job. But I get comments, and they name them specifically sometimes, the channels, and I think we kind of know who we're talking about. They're good-hearted people, but they're so like tunneled visioned into higher price items that a lot of people don't connect. I don't even know. Maybe I'm wrong, and people are buying this stuff more than I know, because obviously they're making a living off of it. But I have a hard time believing that the majority of people really, click that link and buy and $200 and $300 flashlights. I just don't know many people who do that personally. And I have like a pretty good range of friends that some have money and some don't, and I don't ever hear them saying, wow, I went on that YouTube channel and oh my gosh, it got me all wild up and I had to click that link and buy that flashlight and I'm getting it tomorrow, and man, I can't even sleep tonight because it's so flippin' awesome. I never hear that. And I mean, apparently there are some people who do, but it must be pretty rare in my opinion. And so I'm not here to sell anything to anybody or even try to change people's minds of who you should and should not watch on YouTube. That's your thing. And I think you should probably have a full range of people, even those people who push the products. It's sometimes just look at it for, like I said, entertainment value, and maybe just to learn about the product and see what's new in technology. And that's kind of how I use those channels. I never use them to like buy things or influence me on what I should buy next. Trust me, I have enough things to buy. Sometimes just taking care of just normal things in your life, much less trying to prep or be survival minded or to actually, fund your hobbies. We have enough to worry about. And so I just get a little bit irked, and maybe that's just because I watch some things that I probably just shouldn't be watching. Maybe I need to kind of pull back myself, and maybe that's what we all need to do. Send certain people messages, either verbally, or in a message or a PM, or just stop watching. And I think they'll get the message any way you go about it. If no one watches it, for example, they're going to say, okay, this kind of stuff doesn't connect. And if you don't buy from them, they're going to say, man, no, this is not a product that I'm going to try to promote in the future because no one bought that 9,000 lumen flashlight for $200 or $300. And I think I'm going to just kind of maybe go back and get a little more grounded in the core elements of whatever this hobby that I'm promoting. And so, I just kind of, sometimes I shake my head and just go like, where does this come from? Where does all this hype sometimes come from for certain products that it's especially for like electronic products. Like I see sometimes on some big channels pushing these so-called survival types of technology that are very, very high tech, very electronic based, they're battery powered. And you're thinking, okay, maybe you could power them with solar panels and all this stuff, but it's so complicated. Like, they're not waterproof, or there's all kinds of problems that can happen when you're thinking about survival. Do you want some kind of fragile electronics that you're trying to protect? And I just think it's like overcooked. I think we need to come back to, what do we really need? I mean, at the most, maybe for electronics, maybe your cell phone, maybe a basic, crank radio with multiple power options, maybe some type of small, collector, like a solar collector and a panel system, if you will, and maybe some kind of battery that you could charge off of that just to have a little power source. But let's be honest, besides that, I mean, what else do you need? Now, some people would include the newer fangled flashlights into electronics because they are battery powered. So let's just include that. But what else do you need in terms of electronics? You don't need all these very whiz bang type of gadgets that, I mean, they have like survival apps and survival types of like dedicated tablets now, from what I've seen, that you can kind of like just build your own survival type of library and all this stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little old fashioned, but I'm just I'm wanting to go back to basics. I want to go back to what matters. And I want something that's going to be hardy and last and be something that I can pass on, maybe even to the next generation if we're lucky to have that. I don't want something that's just going to go out of style and become obsolete in a couple years, if not less. Or that can break within a year just of normal use. Or the batteries just burn out after a year or two, and now you have to figure out, to get replacements, but you can't find replacements because that model doesn't exist anymore, and those batteries were just for that model. And I see this over and over. Things go obsolete so fast in terms of technology just moving. And it's not that you shouldn't maybe have some certain types of technology, obviously, if it meets your needs and helps you increase your chances of whatever like survival or prepping. But just remember, though, that, we're human beings. And we create a lot of new things, and things are always coming to the forefront. I can't tell you how many times, I've actually put things on a list of things to buy that I was really interested in. At least I thought I was. And because I am like I am, and I've done many videos on this type of strategy, that I try to wait 1 month before I actually ever buy that item. And sometimes I even wait more than that. I mean, I've been known to even wait 6 months to a year. That I keep it on my list, and I just kind of look at it every week or two, or even sometimes, several times a week, depends on if I have time to look at it. And I'll go online and review it again or watch another video on it and just break up that decision to purchase and really delay that purchase to the point that it almost seems like to other people, like, are you going to buy it or not? What's the hesitation for? And for me, I just want to make sure I really want to get it. And this is what I found, and if you've watched the channel for any time, you'd probably know this, but about 90% of what I thought I really wanted. I mean, this is like the kind of the Goldilocks type of list. Like, I mean, this is the stuff. But about 90% of it, I don't find myself, desiring or even needing a month or two later. I mean, is that like not crazy or what? I mean, because either something else has been developed that's even better, and it's just more refined, or I find that it actually, in essence, it was just potentially an impulse item, that it was really not necessary, and the newness wore off. The newness wore off to the point that I was able to be a little bit more objective to say, well, why was I even interested? That little keychain flashlight isn't that great. I have 5 others, and this one is almost the same output, and so what if it uses this new battery technology? I don't even think I want to have that technology. And I find myself doing that a lot, especially with flashlights and pocket knives, just because there's all these little new things, new little features. Mostly it's just cosmetic, and it kind of throws you off. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, after a while, it can kind of wear on you. It's time to get it. But then when you start looking at it again, and you keep on looking at it, the newness wears off, and that excitement fades. And then you start going back to your old stuff, and you're going, man, all this stuff I have already, it seems to work just fine. how many pocket knives do I need? You know, and this knife right here, the more I look at it, I think it's just going to be too heavy, or it sure looks bulky, or that steel really isn't even as good as the steel on my knife that I'm carrying. Why do I need this subpar knife? And so it's not like you're trying to talk yourself out of it. It's just the realization, the reality of what you think you want to purchase really becomes clear. And so we just need to pull back. And so the gear reviewers have a lot of things that they help us to maybe filter as well. But they also put a lot in our face, the consumerism part of it. And they kind of flood us and overwhelm us sometimes, especially if you watch a lot of videos like I do, which I'm trying to taper and cut back. It's almost like an addiction, if you will. But you get to a point that you just want to just settle, you know, because you see all this new stuff and you're like, man, I just want to get at least one of those. They're all cool. But then the more time you get in space, you can get away from it. You're more like, okay, that really isn't necessary. I don't even need that. It's totally excessive, and blah, 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 as we've already talked about. Well, I've talked about. So that's my rant today. I think that we just need to kind of be more mindful of what we really need and what we don't. And maybe not support channels that really push products. Instead, send them the message in a very nice, humanly, polite way, if that's possible, that, if you want my attention, you're going to have to actually review things that make sense to me to purchase. Or at the very least, you're going to have to connect with me in ways that you're not doing now. And so there's some channels, once again, that do a good job of that, and others that just fail. And sadly, there's a lot of good people, though, that are failing, in my opinion. And, and I've done the best I can. I've sent some messages to them on the same note, and I've also unsubscribed. And while I can sometimes once a week or even maybe as little as once a month still go over there and take a peek just to see what's going on in the world of that particular technology or whatever they're reviewing, just to kind of sometimes, even if it's just to read the titles of their videos, to see if there's anything at all that was remotely interesting, if I have a few extra moments that day. But I can tell you, though, a lot of times, I'm not really basing or relying on them for information like I used to. And so I've gotten to the point now that I have the websites of the manufacturers that I like, and I'm open to include more. I mean, I'm not like, okay, these are the only companies I'm going to do business with. But I know what I like and what I don't at this point. And that pretty much encompasses the majority of my purchases. Like there's certain knife manufacturers, just for an example, that I really like. I like Spyderco knives, as you can't, if you couldn't already tell, or even like Victorinox knives. I'm sorry, it's getting dark. I'm getting distracted. There's a lot of noises over here, and we've had a lot of black bear activity in the area, and so I'm gonna have to probably move on out of here before I might get myself in trouble. But in closing, I just want to say, support those people who make sense to you. Declutter your life. Get simple. And hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for all your support, for hanging in here for so long. I know this is going on 24 minutes roughly here. And I don't always mean to make longer videos. It's just sometimes some videos just need a little bit more space to actually express what I'm trying to say. And so thanks for hanging in there, and I'll catch y'all soon.